NTDS.dit extraction is a very dangerous technique, as you can't really audit what's happening once an attacker has obtained that offline copy of your Active Directory. You'll notice under MITRE, it is under the category of OS credential dumping and NTDS. Down here, some of the different things that we'll recommend you do to block or detect it is located in this section over here. This is something that Change Auditor can automatically do for you. And remember that on-demand audit, as well as Security Guardian, can both take this information. A recommendation I would always recommend customers do is get Change Auditor configured. This is in Titan Corp. Customers have to get this configured. You do have the ability to add an exclusion, but within a couple minutes of doing this, typically 15 minutes by default, all these different domain controllers, if somebody's trying to get to the different DIT file, it will generate the event. You could choose to exclude out one of these different processes. Like if you know that RMAD, for example, is going to be doing a copy, you don't want that to generate an event, you could exclude it where that is a safe process and would never exclude an event. It really doesn't generate that many different events to begin with. So to start off with a customer environment, you probably just kind of want to leave it blank and learn what is extracting or trying to get a copy of your DIT file offline. You'll see common things like shadow copy services in a lot of different organizations and those different events, but you may be surprised at some of the different things you see as well. We had one recently where there was a mrt.exe file looking at it as a Microsoft tool. It's actually scanning across the DIT file. When you are applying this auditing template, make sure you do this little checkbox right here, that little down arrow, and assign it to a different configuration so it'll get assigned to all the different agents. The other thing we've already done, typically in a customer environment, we may want to give a little bit of time to see what's actively getting to your DIT file. But after we've got that done, we know what processes are sanctioned or allowed. We can then allow list where only certain processes are allowed to do an offline extraction. So this protection capability we have here, we've done an allow list where Recovery Manager, our sanction AD backup tool, is allowed to do an offline extraction of your NTDS.dit. There's a lot of different hacking tools once I have this different file where you can't detect what's happening when it's off the network. So a common tool, Impacket, is a freeware tool anybody can get, which given it time can start doing an offline extraction of all the different hashes in your organization. And you get those different hashes, then you can convert that to a plain text password later on if you're able to give enough time to be able to crack that hash to begin with. This is really scary because if I can get that valid credential, if you do a restoration of your AD, well, if I knew some of that valid credential, which is the same, I could still use that. That's why, when doing an AD recovery, it's vital to change all those administrative account passwords because they may have done an offline extraction and be able to know that password hashes to begin with.
Hey, Brian, just a quick question regarding the protection template for those who are watching this. Any best practices on who you whitelist and who owns the template?
So I like to allow list it with just your Sanction AD tool. Some of these antivirus things may attempt to do it. I saw an article from Microsoft a while back that you should exclude out antivirus from scanning your NTDS.dit file to begin with, because it's going to be noise at that different point. So you may choose to exclude out if your antivirus is still generating those different events from that generating a failed access attempt.
This is already by default in Titan Corp. What we're looking at here is already by default set up in Titan Corp.
Yeah, we see the restore, so we can still do a restoration. These are things that Ian Lindsay had set up. There's that mrt.exe. Some of these were generating some different events. All right, Jason, go ahead and share out, do the extraction, what you did for your demo scenario.
For our use in Titan Corp, I'm going to carry out this attack and give you some background to the type of attack and some information about why it's a popular attack. So when an attacker gets online on somebody's network and has gained privilege along the way, I am now logged in to our domain controller in Titan Corp. Using my privileged account, It is as easy as just, there's a few real good ones, but it's as easy as just getting an elevated command prompt as an administrator. Now, the one I'm going to mention I will not demo is VSS admin. The reason I'm mentioning it, it's a volume shadow copying is a command line within Microsoft, and it's considered living off the land, which is a technique that attackers use to not alert security of their presence. And if you use VSS admin, you can do the same thing I'm going to do with the special utility that was designed to do a DIT backup or database backup of Active Directory, which is NTDS.dit.exe. Once I'm in there, I'm going to carry out a few commands. First, we need to activate the instance of NTDS. Now it's active, and I'm targeting it. Then we're going to carry out IFM, which will give me the ability to then create full. So I'm giving it the command to make a file backup, and I'm going to dump it out full to C : / I don't know, I'll use temp3. And now it's actually carrying out that action. So this is very much like VSS admin, but the utility was made specifically just to do database dumping. So an actual attacker will use this to mount and copy the database off the network, because once they have this in a registry hive, they can use the tools like Brian had mentioned earlier. Now, what we're going to see here is the operation was terminated with an error. And the reason it was terminated with an error is because of the protection template capabilities within Change Auditor that locked me, even as a domain admin, from performing this action. So it's very important to protect it. Now, if I ran this as VSS admin, another DOS command line based utility, it would do the same exact thing, because we are protecting it for only processes that are allowed, and we are going to create that exclusion list that Brian showed and allow those only. So even I'm running as this admin, I cannot actually carry out the rest of this command because I'm not allowed to use this process to back up the database using the native utility.
Right. Hey,
And just a reminder for all, our own recovery manager tool, a lot of people will have it set to be able to do those different backups, which is why if it's a domain joined machine and you have an unpacked backup sitting on your recovery manager server, you need to control access to those different files. Anybody that can get those different files can do the same different attacks against these different things here, the NTDS.dit file, to get those different password hashes offline.
Yep.
Sure. All right. So in Change Auditor now, we should at least see a protection report generated.
We're configured for any protection attempts that are going across Change Auditor. So right here, I see that from event. The way I configure is for the protected. I also put myself as well as whoever else was in the who field. So Jason, since you did this, you were alerted that you made this attempt on this different value. You should have this email to whatever your Titan Corp, your configuration is for your on-premises stuff. This alert will come on premises a little bit faster. It's configured here. ODA will take a little bit longer to process because the data will then have to go from the out-of-date on premises out to on-demand audit. But it's something you can definitely get configured, and you would be able to see in on-demand audit as well. In Change Auditor itself, since I have the console open, I'll show you the different search or overview. Because remember, the overview has the last 15 minutes right here. And scrolling down a little bit because things are happening out there. We should see the J Morano with the result protected right here. So this is the attempt that Jason did. Those are the different events that will then go out to on-demand audit and then feed into Security Guardian.
Yeah, so it's right here. I'm in the Security Guardian console, and all I have to do is click on Investigate. And it's showing me that I carried this out recently on DC4. Now, I do want to make clear that Security Guardian is going to run on a schedule. So it will crawl the information that it received during its next scheduled scan. So we're using an older attempt that I made for this example, but understand the real live notifications are going to come directly from Change Auditor, on-demand audit, looking at unusual activity or any activity that the customer in Change Auditor had set up, looking specifically for that kind of activity where somebody is trying to use a process to extract the database. But as the product using Security Guardian, as that information gets brought in, you can see this attempt. It was carried out on DC4, and all I have to do is click on this and actually go into the detailed information that we had accessed, and you'll see the attempts that I had made where I have failed. And that is because of the protection template. And you'll see it's running a snap. So really NTDS util.exe is really running the same backup on the back end that VSS admin, the shadow copy, is trying to perform on the database. It waits for a silent moment in time, and then it dumps the file.
So from a timing standpoint, just for someone who's getting the lab ready to show to a customer, you just attempted the event in your environment in Titan Corp. Yep. It takes about 5 minutes for that to push out to on-demand audit. You saw the email already, Brian, right? But that was a Change Auditor. Was that a Change Auditor email or was it an ODA?
That was a Change Auditor email. So Change Auditor emails will always happen a little bit quicker because it goes from the agent usually within a minute, and the coordinator will process it, and that's what's sending it off. Whereas ODA, as soon as it hits the coordinator, then it actually has to go out there to on-demand audit and do its ingestion there.
And that takes about 5 minutes typically. Now, what's the schedule from between on-demand audit and Security Guardian? How often is Security Guardian pulling information?
Currently, once a day.
Once a day. So this has to be done like 1 day ahead of time, at least, if you want to get this use case configured.
Yes.
And Jason, can you go to audit under searches?
Sure.
Yeah, go to searches, and then you'll see the Active Directory database events.
Sure.
And see the AD database. And there you can see all the different events over the last 7 days as well. And Jason, the thing that you just did, it's been a couple minutes. We now see that different event also.
Correct.
Keep in mind, when Jason did this, he was already on that different server. So this is why it's important to control who can get access to a domain controller to begin with. Yep. Once you're physically there, that's where people can do privilege escalation and elevate the privileges on that machine itself. So understanding and limiting control to the tier 0 object is definitely paramount. So that's another big asset or aspect of it. Understand the relations of all those different objects that should be categorized as tier 0. And your AD backup server should also be categorized as tier 0, because then there's another way, another path to get an NTDS.dit file.
And if you don't have the alerting set up from Change Auditor, you can definitely set up the alerting here inside of on-demand audit. So you can catch it either inside of Change Auditor when the event happens, or about 5 minutes later from on-demand when the events gets pushed to on-demand audit.
Correct. And another benefit of the on-demand is you'll be subject to the alert plan as well, right? So you only have to subscribe to one. For Change Auditor, I set it up for any changes to any protected objects. I know about all those, so I only had to configure that one time. So Change Auditor is going to be fastest. On-demand audits, the next fastest, could be a couple minutes later. Security Guardian will take a little bit longer, but keep in mind with Security Guardian, you will always have on-demand audit. So it's just something you probably want to get configured as an alert to immediately know about these different attempts as they are occurring.
Yeah, and we always have to frame Security Guardian properly. It is a tool that allows our customers to see precursors to carry out attacks and potential suspicious activity or indicators of compromise. And because of the way that product is built, it's going to take the information, run it against a list of indicators, and provide admins the most critical information to help them harden their environment against the precursors, remove the temptation or the jumping off point, and suppress the indicator of compromise to only processes that are allowed. And allowing that to happen will protect tier 0 because it's another part of the process that the customers have to mitigate for, that they're currently not doing or they are doing, but the tools that we have might be too noisy and they might fall silent to those admins because they're catching too many events. So Security Guardian is really critical for our customers to build their tier 0 out, take their tier 0 objects, the items that are going to be protected. Those are usually privileged accounts, privileged computers like domain controllers, certificate servers, any service account that has elevation, anything really above domain user in permission on the network could be quickly identified as, well, if I can get to it, then I can try to escalate my privilege on the network and move myself up. And that's how attackers are making these attacks once they get in. This product, of course, then gives them that ability with tier 0. And with the scanning on the back end of this product, the indicators are what our customers are going to do to look for the precursor of the attack, suppress those, fix those, essentially suppressing them, meaning remove them from the environment. And then anytime there's a compromise like this, is this legitimate activity or is this activity that is carrying out an action against my environment that can be detrimental to the owner owning my environment going forward, ransomware attack or changing critical passwords and locking admins out. This is how they're going to attempt to do this. And that's why this product is so critical to our customer success at minimizing and cutting through the noise, all the events that they might be inundated with other security tools.
And Jason, I would add, just remember, we're looking here, what's getting a copy off of the Active Directory domain controllers. Yep. So many other organizations do not have a dedicated AD recovery tool, such as Recovery Manager. So their Commvault, Veeam, Zerto, they need to understand access to those different tools if those, in fact, have an offline copy of the NTDS.dit, because access to that could be part of the different compromise. So we can only control the AD stuff, and it's good to remind the customers they understand who actually has control of the different backup servers. Are your backup operators tier 0 people? If not, this may reinforce the need to have a dedicated AD recovery tool and stop acting of AD with those non-AD focused type tooling.
So if I don't have any of these solutions, how can I find out if a copy of the NTDS.dit file was made?
If you look at the MITRE, there's some native events that an organization could, in fact, turn on. So looking at different native events, let me share out again. They reference it in MITRE of what you should be looking at. So here's different command execution. You can see these different events right here. And there's some different things via PowerShell. Well, this is if you have PowerShell logging to begin with. Yeah. So, you know, most organizations aren't getting that granular. I mean, something like Intrust can collect some different PowerShell stuff, which does native collections. Maybe Intrust could be used to do some of this different thing. You also see down here, some other different events that you could look at from this perspective, looking at the different shadow copy.
But
So
that's
it's a
all
little
very
more technical. We could do it with Intrust, and you could do it with your SIM, but you're going to have to get it configured to be able to analyze all those different things.